Well, it's time now for Voices of the Region when we hear from an area journalist about stories making news. This week, our guest is author and columnist Aaron Brown.
The historic Hibbing City Hall is really part of the landscape of Hibbing. It was built in 1922 in collaboration between the Oliver Iron Mining Company of U.S. Steel and the village of Hibbing at the time. The city is now facing financial difficulties in maintaining the city hall. It's gone neglected on a couple things. It needs some upgrades, particularly for its ADA compliance for disability access. And it's facing a bill, according to one estimate, of up to $14 million to get the city hall back into the condition it would need to be in. That's a lot of money for any city, and certainly for an Iron Range city that has had budget challenges over these past couple decades. There was a proposal to close City Hall and probably eventually tear it down and build a new one. A report that showed that that might be the cheaper option. Of course, now a wide variety of people are saying this City Hall, which was modeled after Independence Hall in Philadelphia, it's colonial style. It's literally on the billboards of the town and on the trucks of the city. It's one of the most iconic images on the Iron Range is this City Hall. There's of course, the Historical Society. Many in the city are now speaking up, trying to save City Hall. The retail sector has been challenging. We know that malls have struggled, that even big box stores in some cases have struggled these past few years. Malls have closed, malls have changed their purpose. But there is a northern Minnesota retail business that's actually expanding right now. L&M Supply, based in Grand Rapids, has stores throughout northern Minnesota, northern Wisconsin, and the far eastern end of the Upper Peninsula of, far western end of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. Is expanding. They're building a $56 million facility in Grand Rapids, a warehouse facility that will beef up their ability to serve all of their markets, maybe even expand in the future. According to data from the Iron Range Resources Agency, which recently granted a $2.5 million grant to the project, there's as many as 35 new jobs that might be created as a result, boosting the workforce up past 80 at this facility. It's that's a lot of jobs. When we think about the job projects that we hear about, I think if a company was promising 35 jobs, people would be pretty excited to get that in their small town. And here's a local business that's expanding. So it's a sign that perhaps there are models for small regional retail companies to build and thrive and survive in this market. And there's an example being played out here in northern Minnesota. Late breaking news here this week. The workers at Blandin Paper Mill, UPM Blandin in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, announced that they had reached a tentative agreement with UPM over a labor contract. This would be workers represented by the Teamsters. And this strike had endured for several weeks, more than a month, through the late part of the summer here, and was really putting a lot of people on edge. This is an industry where there's a lot of change happening and downsizing, and a lot of workers and company officials and community officials were worried that this thing would drag out even longer, perhaps putting the future of the plant at risk. Well, workers who did have some complaints about the way that they were being staffed and paid apparently reached some kind of an agreement. Now, this meeting that the workers are having to vote on ratifying the agreement is happening today, Friday, and we don't have the results of that meeting at this hour, but usually when there's a tentative agreement, the leadership goes in strongly advocating for the agreement, and we'll see how that turns out. But I would expect we are closer to the resolution of this strike than ever before.